It's been a couple of days since the NBA revealed the 2023 All-Stars, and to the surprise of many Raptors fans, Pascal Siakam was not on the list. So in today's video, we're going to visit, is Pascal Siakam really as big of a snub as we have made it out to be? Let's get into it. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Amateur Hour Sports. This is the channel where you get the greatest coverage and analysis on the latest Toronto Raptors news. We do videos like this and live stream watch parties for almost every single Raptors game. So if you like what you see from today's video, you like the Raptors, you're going to love Amateur Hour Sports. So make sure you are subscribed to the channel. You can help me on my road to 14,000 subscribers. And if you find yourself enjoying this video along the way, please be sure to hit that like button. Let's try to reach 250 likes on today's video. But the video is all about the NBA All-Star selections. I recognize it was a couple of days ago now. Yesterday I was focusing on the game. Today we're doing the video talking all about this situation, and I'm sure at this point you have seen the All-Star teams. This is what you're going to get on either side for the Eastern Conference and the Western Conference. And though we can talk about some certain snubs on the Western Conference side, we are focusing of course on our man on our side here, Pascal Siakam, who was left off of the Eastern Conference All-Stars team, and it was met with a lot of criticism. It was met with a lot of shock from Raptors fans, especially myself. I remember getting the notification on my phone for Shams tweeting out the All-Star teams and was met with just complete surprise. I had to check over the list 3-4 times. Like, is he actually not on the All-Star team this season? Because the perception from myself and from, I would say, many people, not just Raptors fans, was that he was pretty much a lock to make the All-Star game this season based on the way that he was playing. But there was always that hint of suspicion that it could come down to the Raptors' record in the season. When the All-Star teams were announced, the Raptors had a 23-30 record. That was the worst it had gotten this season, so it wasn't quite that bad. But for most of the All-Star voting process, the Raptors were 3 to 5 games under 500. Clearly not really making any waves towards getting into a playoff position, and a lot of the times the voting really does come down to your team record. When you're trying to split hairs, when you're trying to pick which player should be on the All-Star team over another, it does often come down to which team is challenging for a playoff position, how good a team's recorded. But a lot of the time it can be just, is this team a playoff team and is this team not a playoff team? Well, that is simple. That has made our decision for us, and that was always the suspicion there. But even still, this is the NBA All-Star Game. This is an achievement from an individual perspective. And sure, individual achievement on the court should translate into winning. But from what we've seen so far this season, especially the first half of the season for the Raptors, Siakam was putting this team on his back and wasn't getting a lot of support here. For a large chunk of the season, the Raptors were operating right around 500. And that was when Siakam was operating at not even an All-Star, not even All-NBA. Like, Siakam was damn near at an MVP level the way he was playing. And that was amidst all the struggles from Fred VanVleet, from Gary Trent Jr., from Scotty Barnes. Siakam was keeping this team relevant, keeping this team in the mix. And there's been a slight drop-off recently. I can't deny January has not been the best month for Pascal Siakam. But even when Siakam is not at his best, he's still comfortably averaging in the low 20s for points in those games and still doing so pretty efficiently. Overall on the season, Pascal Siakam is averaging just a fraction under 25 points per game, 8 rebounds and above 6 assists, doing so pretty efficiently as well, shooting 47% from the field. The three-point percentage has dropped a little bit over the course of the season, but still 47% shooting. That is efficient. Siakam is having a wonderful season. Like, it is very, very difficult to average essentially 25, 8, and 6. In fact, so few players do that across the entire NBA. Pascal Siakam is one of them. All of these things together culminated into the All-Star candidacy that I was, like, a month ago, if you ask me, he's an absolute lock. Since All-Star voting has opened up, he has not quite been at the same level. I will agree with that. But from what we've seen, the lack of games that he has missed, the amount of minutes he's playing, the work he's putting in for this team, everything was pointing to that All-Star appearance, especially the day that All-Star voting opened up. He scored 50 points at MSG against the New York Knicks. But here we are today. 12 players have made the All-Star team from the Eastern Conference. Pascal Siakam is not one of them. People want to question if the All-Star rosters should be bigger. I would kind of push back on that one, but it is what it is. The rosters are what they are, and even with them in the position they are at 12 players, I thought Siakam was in the top 12 for those. And when it comes with a snub, when it comes to players not making an all-star team, why they aren't on an all-star team, you can't just say this guy was deserving of being an all-star. You have to also find certain players that should not have been an all-star that were there. And when you look at the Eastern Conference all-star team, I think there's 9 players that I am like pretty much certain. Like those are absolutely all-stars this season. I fully support those guys being all-stars. The 5 guys starting plus 4 players along with that. The 3 players where I think there is a little bit more of a question going in are Tyrese Haliburton, DeMar DeRozan, and Drew Holiday. Now, Tyrese Haliburton, I understand the all-star candidacy. He's been outstanding this season. I think Siakam has been better than him, but I wouldn't take away his all-star position. Where I would go a little bit further here, I drop down into DeMar DeRozan, and more importantly, I drop down into Drew Holiday. Now, even though I think Siakam was snubbed, I don't think he was the only player snubbed from the Eastern Conference. I'd also have in James Harden in one of these teams. No, James Harden is not the player he used to be, but he's a completely different player, and he's an outstanding point guard, playmaker, and in fact, he's been better than Tyrese Haliburton, even though they play very similar roles this season. James Harden has been a little bit better, and he's on the much better team, so I would suggest that maybe there's a conversation over there. But DeRozan and Drew Holiday are very confusing to me. With Drew Holiday, I understand the talent that Holiday has. I understand what he brings to his team, the defense that he brings, and the solid offensive play. Like, he's a very important part of what the Milwaukee Bucks do from a point of attack defense standpoint, as I mentioned, and beyond. But in terms of what he brings as an all-star player, I just don't think he's been on that level this season. In fact, I would wager that if Drew Holiday was left off the all-star teams completely, we wouldn't even be having any sort of discussions about him being an omission, being a snub from the All-Star game. He didn't make it, like, nobody would even be talking about Drew Holiday as somebody who had a chance to make the All-Star game. Like, I recognize his talent. I'm not saying he's not a good player, but he has not been at the All-Star level this season. I think that is pretty safe to say. I don't even think that's a hot take. But if you want to throw Harden ahead of that, maybe you could throw Harden because you want to replace a guard. We can go a little bit further on to DeMar DeRozan. DeMar DeRozan has been great this season, but he has not been as good as Pascal Siakam, and the Bulls also have not been great this season. So if the argument is going to come down to record, well, then there's going to be some question marks about the Chicago Bulls, and if there's also question marks about record, there should also be question marks about the Indiana Pacers. I would suggest that Siakam has been more than good enough to get in ahead of Drew Holiday in that position, despite the fact the Bucks have a much better record. Siakam has just overblown him in terms of individual ability so far this season, the way Pascal Siakam plays. Then you go further down, you go to DeMar DeRozan. I think Siakam's been better than DeRozan, but, maybe people are talking about the record. I think Siakam's been better than Tyrese Haliburton, but maybe, again, people are talking about the record for the player and what they bring from a media perspective here. And I understand if people, like I said earlier on, are going to factor in the record by that much. But if you're going to factor in the record, you're going to make a point that the team record is important. You need to make that a consistency amongst the voting, because clearly record does not matter. Because when the All-Star teams were announced, we can talk about it today because it's even worse today from a Raptors fan perspective, but on the day that the All-Star teams were announced, the Raptors were 1 game back of the Indiana Pacers, who have Tyrese Haliburton as an All-Star, and they were only 2 games back of the Chicago Bulls, who have DeMar DeRozan as an All-Star. Sure, I understand. Siakam, had he made the All-Star game, he would have been on the team with the worst record in that NBA All-Star game. But we're really splitting hairs if we're saying that is such a detriment to making the All-Star team in terms of record, when it clearly is not a problem for a player like DeMar DeRozan or Tyrese Haliburton. I would say more importantly, DeMar DeRozan, especially from a positional standpoint, both playing as a forward. I really do not understand how DeRozan has got in there ahead of Pascal Siakam. I respect DeRozan's game, but he's just not been operating at the same level from Pascal Siakam. From an offensive standpoint, Siakam has been better, and from a defensive standpoint, that's just not even close. Pascal Siakam this season has been carrying a ton of the burden offensively for the Raptors. Maybe it's causing him to be a little bit burnt out lately, but still, he's putting up good numbers and did so yesterday, albeit against a very lowly Houston Rockets team. He can score on all 3 levels. His mid-range game has taken a huge step up. His interior finishing has taken a massive step up. His ability to draw contact, get to the line, add in a few more points to his game, getting up to 25 points per game, That has taken a humongous leap this season, and defensively what he brings, he is a great defender, much better than the comparisons as you would make him to DeMar DeRozan. People want to talk about Julius Randle making as well. I thought Randle was pretty much a lock to make it with the way the Knicks have played this season and the way he's played this season. His offensive numbers are very reminiscent of Pascal Siakam. Defensively, he is nowhere close to Siakam, but I still wouldn't remove him. The big fixation I have is DeMar DeRozan, and it is Jrue Holiday. Genuinely confused and frustrated that Siakam has put in the work to elevate his game to such a level, and for the second season in a row, I really feel like he has been robbed of an all-star position. More so last season as an injury reserve. I still am confused to this day how Jarrett Allen got in ahead of him, but this season, like, genuinely, it felt like he was a lock to make it with the level that he was consistently operating at. The consistency of what Pascal Siakam has done this season compared to others. I don't know what it is. I honestly don't know what it is. I'm struggling to come up with any sort of explanation. The only thing it can be for Siakam is the fact that the Raptors have such a bad record. Like, that is the only thing that it genuinely can be for the player to have not made it onto the All-Star game, because individually, he is more than deserving. But if the record is such a sticking point for Siakam, why was it not a sticking point for players like DeMar DeRozan, for players like Tyrese Haliburton? The amount of work that Siakam puts in here, especially going into a summer where he's extension eligible, where this is a big deal for the guy, I really do feel for him. I really do feel for him. At the end of the day, you know, it's just the All-Star game, but these things mean a lot to a player and their accolades. It means a lot towards their legacy and what they've brought to a team. So I really am sad for the player. Hopefully, and based on the press conference we saw yesterday, hopefully this can be used as a motivational factor. And I like his attitude from that interview where he said he has to get it to a point where there is no debate. You can't debate that he is an all-star. And I really thought that he had done that this season, but hopefully that is a motivation for Siakam to find a new level, especially if he is to stay with the Raptors beyond this season, amidst all the trades that are about to go down for this team and the reshaping of the organization. He can be a big part of it. Let's see what he can do for the rest of this season and potentially beyond. What do you guys make of Pascal Siakam getting snubbed? I really feel like this was a bad decision by the people who voted on this one, but let me know your thoughts and opinions in the comments down below, because that is it for me for today. Thank you so much for watching this video. Please, if you did enjoy, be sure to hit that thumbs up button. It does go a long way to supporting the channel, and make sure you're subscribed to Amateur Sports for more videos and content just like this.